Time to go Commando in Mercs. Mercs is a 1990 game from Capcom. It is a sequel, a rather overdue sequel, to Commando. Therefore, you know the deal. It's a run and gun style game. Well, it's a sequel to Commando, but what it has over that original game is big visuals, lots of huge sprites, tanks to drive, and all sorts of action. And of course, being a sequel to Commando, it has a two-player mode. Ported to, well, all the home systems at the time, really. And we're going to start off on the Master System, and off we go. You have two styles of weapons. You have a gun that you can upgrade, and you've also got these grenades that can blow things up. There are large sprites to blow up, houses on level 1. And look, it's very like Commando, really, especially on this 8-bit system here. 1 or 2 players on the Master System version. Take note, when we come to see the Megadrive version, it's 1 player only. Over to the Spectrum. And if you're wondering where the audio is, these home ports are done by Tiertex, and as we know from other games done by Tiertex on the Spectrum, such as UN Squadron, if you've got a grade +2, then the audio is practically inaudible. Out of a value of 15, 0 to 15 on the audio level, the maximum the game uses apparently is 7, and that's too low for a grade +2. But there's a problem before you begin on the Spectrum, because if you configure your controls as keyboard on the spec, you want a 1-player game, you load the game in and you won't be able to do anything. Because the game has player 2 defined as the keyboard, but it doesn't try and stop you, but player 2 isn't enabled, and it basically doesn't work. So you have to load the entire game in again, and then remember, if you're going to play on keyboard, to define player 2 as something like Kempston. It's infuriating. Anyway, we're off here on the Spectrum, and it looked very basic. In fact, I believe US Gold said in their press release they sent out with the game that it was more about the playability of the game than the graphics. And that's because they realised it looked like something from 1985. Still, you know, as I always say, the playability does count, so perhaps it's going to be a stunningly playable game. It chops along fairly well. Slightly reminiscent of Smash TV with the 8-way scrolling. But it's not as fun as Commando because of the larger sprites, and you can see less on the screen. And generally it doesn't really get... Although it gets busy, it never really gets that kind of busy that you get in Commando, for example, when you come to the gates and then people start streaming out of them. It just feels and looks rather old. 64 version. Winners don't use drugs. And you'll be thinking there's a nice beefy tune here. It loops around every 20 seconds or so. And after 20 minutes, you'll be turning the volume down. Far less than that, you'll be turning the volume down. Again, nothing graphically stunning on the C64, and slightly weird scrolling that you will see. It's perfectly possible to butt up hard against the edge of the screen at certain times, so you can't see what's ahead of you. Character animation, well, you see there, it's slightly weird and laggy, and you can outrun the screen. When you think Ikari Warriors, which is a far older game, got the animation better than this, then, well, Tiertex really, isn't it? But the level layout is faithfully copied from the arcade. We jump over to here, and suddenly we've got this... It's not a helicopter, it's a plane. I think I said it was a helicopter earlier. ST version. So on the 16-bit here you get a little bit of introduction, and off we go. So looking closer to the arcade, the closest we've seen so far, barring the animation and scrolling, which is fairly terrible. I mean, it moves, but there's not many frames there, are there, really? But on the Amiga, we actually do have far smoother graphics, and that's the attract mode, showing two-player available on the, well, all the versions apart from the Megadrive. So we'll just finish off that plane there. Since I'm on infinite credits, I don't really care about losing energy. That chunky font doesn't seem very 16-bit, does it? Megadrive, there's an arcade mode and original mode. The arcade mode is, well, the arcade version. The original version is the Megadrive specific version that has extra levels and allows you to buy extra weapons. We're going to go with the arcade version because that's what's on the other systems, and it's going to get too confusing with all these systems. But the original version of the game is well worth checking out. So you can see it's a real step up from all these other versions. This was the best-selling Megadrive game of 1991. And, well, generally well received, apart from the fact there's no two-player mode. No, I don't know why. Seems like a bizarre omission on a console that has two controllers. And when the Master System has two players. One thing about Mercs is there's a time limit on the levels, which is just completely annoying. It doesn't need it. I don't know why they added it. It's just an extra thing. It just doesn't... It makes no sense. You can understand if you're rushing to the end of the level to prevent an explosion on one of the levels, perhaps, but all the levels having time limits is... It's not needed. It's something you have in the arcade to stop people hogging machines and taking their time to base, because for coin guzzlers, there's no need on home systems. And I've got the flamethrower now, which is awesome. This is it, isn't it, really? This is... Now we can get into the Jeep there, and off we go. This is what Mercs is all about. Big weapons and vehicles. And all those things in Commando and Atari Warriors as well that you enjoyed that have just been taken up to 11 here because you've got the extra power of the Megadrive. Ah, I love this flamethrower. I'm sorry. Look at the people burning there. Oh, yeah, this is cool. This is cool. Come on, burn! There you go. I think, well, the weapons do different amount of damages against different types of enemy. Amstrad version, you'll be wondering why I've left this version to last. It's because I was warned the disk image on the site I downloaded it from was slightly corrupted, and indeed it is. Level 1 doesn't work. So we're going to drop in straight to level 2 on the Amstrad. And yeah, you got the Teartex feel here, haven't you? You got all the animation of the Spectrum version with big blocky graphics with kind of coarse scrolling, and we've knocked this out in a couple of weeks from the same code base as the Spectrum. Amstrad Computer User reviewed the game. They don't give overall scores in this era, they just gave a picture of a man with his eyes popping up his head, but they gave it 88 for graphics, 82% for sound, and 86% for playability. But that ACE review isn't that much of an outlier, because Amstrad Action gave it a mark in the 70% area and said it had smooth scrolling. I don't know what game they were playing, but when it came for the budget re-release, Simon Forrester was far harsher, giving the game 47%. Back to the Sega Master System. And really, it's a cut-down version of that Megadrive game. We've got the vehicles. large, wide screen with lots of scrolling. It doesn't really feel cutting edge, but it's just kind of an enhanced Commando, really. It doesn't have that wow factor that you get on the Megadrive. Mines across the road there designed to get me out of my Jeep. But you do get those massive tanks. I say it hasn't got the wow factor, perhaps it does have the wow factor, because the other 8-bit versions don't really have sprites that big. Let's try and do some damage there. Slightly weedy Master System sound effects. No music. Which is a shame on the Specky. I'm in my Jeep. Going for a little drive. Look at that! Whoa! On the Specky as well. That's not bad. That's not bad. I'll take that. Not even an end of level baddie, it's just one of the tanks that appear. I'm not. So the graphics are generally disappointing, and then that happens. And now it goes back to looking pretty rubbish until the next tank comes up. Just looking at the reviews here, Your Sinclair gave this 75%. That's James Leach, who, well, he did the Outrun Europa review, so yeah. Back to the 64. Hopefully we're going to get some big tanks here. Oh, that weird scrolling. I didn't experience it when playing this, but some people report it's very easy to get stuck and be able to get your way out on certain parts of the levels. Reviews on the 64 are not favourable. Zap gave it 59%, Commodore Format gave it 57%, and on re-release dropped that to 28%. I don't think it's a 28% game on budget. Well, see, up against the blimmin' edge of the screen there. That's the most irritating thing. You want to run ahead. You want to run ahead. And you can't because the screen has not scrolled in time. I can think of plenty scrolling shoot-'em-up games that are worse than this. New York Warriors for a start. Well, that didn't come out in the C64, did it? No, it's not. It's not fantastic, but it's not 28%. Over to the Amiga we go. Huge tank there to shoot. It's disappointing on the Amiga that there are sound effects, but they seem to be so weedy and down in the mix. What you want is big thumping explosions, but they seem really low down and overpowered by the music. It lacks that. This could be as good as the Megadrive version. What am I saying? It's tier text. Of course it can't be as good as the Megadrive version. But it could be, with care, that good. It does use that narrow screen from the arcade. Kind of the monitor turned on its side for the authentic feel, but again, the problem is, of course, at home you can't turn your monitor on the side, so it just feels a bit weird or makes everything feel small. There we go. Mission 2 completed. Bonus and extra bits and pieces. And off we go to level 3. You shoot crates to get power-ups. I don't know if I said that or not. However, what then happened is on my Amiga, the game crashed. So I loaded it up again, played it again, and it crashed in the same place. So for the Amiga, that was the end of that. So we go to the ST. So the scrolling here on the ST is very coarse. Feels more like the Spectrum and Amstrad versions, but with more polished graphics. So lots to shoot around the place. Lots of destruction. It doesn't feel as cohesive on the ST There's even the Amiga version. It's very noticeable. Once you've played the Megadrive version, you're kind of just feeling it all feels a bit lame, really. Speaking of which, back on the Megadrive, this is how it should look. God, look at this. All the extra detail, all the floorboards on the boat there. Or the deck boards, sorry. I'm dying a lot now. Spraying my bullets everywhere. Just all the little extra touches of animation when the crates come out and just everything. It's just nice. Such a shame there's no two-player mode. And the animation and because it's an 8-way shoot 'em up, 8 directions in terms of where you can shoot. That fluidity just makes it work so much better. So we go to the Spectrum where things are looking extremely messy. Colour clash ahoy. It's yeah. I mean, no wonder US Gold are making excuses. Just the general state of it now is well, they really can't be bothered, can they? If we're honest. A little bit of care and attention could get rid of all of this, no problem at all. But it's just been slapped together because Teartex, right? And it's a shame because it doesn't play that badly. And two-player, I reckon you could have some fun here. It's just messy. It's so messy. Over the C64 end of level, and there's a big helicopter we're trying to shoot down there. And this, on the 64 again, it feels messy, because the 64 can do better than this. Again, I'm not saying it's a 28% game, because it isn't. But it just feels like there could be more. And we may not have seen this yet, but none of the tanks are in the C64 version. You wander around and then you suddenly realise you haven't seen any, because they're not there. The big end of level baddies are there, but the tanks and things are lacking. So now this is the water level. That was what I call the water level. All very peculiar colours. The green water, but hey ho. So just the 3-way bullets are really good, especially because people are coming from all directions. I had to keep on walking back because otherwise the screen catches up with me and I can't see ahead at all, and I'll just die as soon as something comes towards me. I mean, why, when they were testing this, didn't they go keep the sprite in the middle of the screen like the Amstrad version, so you can't get too close to the edge? Got a flamethrower. I mean, it's a bit kind of yeah. It's me. Oh dear. If you fancy joining the ChinnyVision Patreon, well, that's very kind of you. Details in the description below. There's previews of videos on there and a few exclusives as well, including the new Chinny Club, which is a once a month thing where I play through something in a more informal setting, unedited, and I just see what happens. Or if you just prefer to shout at me about how wrong-minded I am, how I'm a blatant Amstrad fanboy who always says the Amstrad version is the best, then at ChinnyVision on Twitter is the place to come and have a chat and just tell me I'm wrong. Into the water we go, flamethrower. Watch behind you, it's very easy to be shot from behind. It's one thing I hate about certain types of run and gun games. I know Jailbreak isn't the kind of traditional run and gun game, but baddies spawning behind you can be quite irritating. But hey, I've got infinite credits, so I can just plough my way through here. There is criticisms of some of the versions of the game that they're too hard. I think it'd probably be better if you had 2 players. Back to the Master System. And it's nice to have some fluid animation and full screen action. My only level baddie this time is a big boat. Capcom like boats, don't they? As level baddies, I seem to remember UN Squadron having lots of armed boats to try and destroy. I've used my grenades against it, and that seems to work. And off we go again. I think you'd be quite pleased to have this on your Master System. When I got it, I played it a bit, although I admittedly paid £1 for it back in 2003, probably, something like that, 2004, at a car boot sale. Actually, did I even pay £1 for it? I may have paid 50p for it. I picked up a whole load of games one day for next to nothing. Those were the days. Spectrum version. And off we go again. It's not too bad. It's. Oh, and I'm on 48k sound now as well, by the way. On a 48k, this is an absolutely horrific multi-load. On the 128, it appears to be a multi-load, but actually it loads a whole load of stuff in. Megadrive version. I'm in a tank. Oh, I'm in a tank. Look at this. Oh, I'm not in a tank anymore. This is what Mercs is all about, and this is what the other versions all lack. Kind of multi-directional chaos, big vehicles, loads of weapons, fluidity. It feels like a true update to Commando, where the others feel like, I don't know, not as fun as Commando. Perhaps they're, well, I was going to say perhaps they're more, Commando's more suited to those systems, and that's going to be true for the C64 Spectrum and Amstrad, but certainly not for the ST and Amiga, where it's just a kind of, what we've got is some kind of lame, cheaply put together copy of the arcade game, whereas this Megadrive version shows what can be done. Now here we go, look at this. It's big guns. Again, reminds you of some of those level baddies in UN Squadron. But you do get that on the Amstrad, but in about 2 frames of animation per second. So it's here, and hey, at least it's not Spectrum port. Try to look at some positives. It does speed up when the guns go off the screen, but it can only be described as a mess, really. C64. Goodness knows what I'm riding along the side there, if I'm standing still or what. I'm supposed to be on a platform, aren't I? But I don't know what's going on in C64 here. The music is really getting on my nerves now, because there's so little of it. It just loops over, around and around and around and around. And it's so... You get the initial impression it's quite kind of beefy, and then it just sounds bland. Finally, we reached the end of the game. Here's the ST version. You have to disable the aircraft, which means basically shooting the propellers on the aircraft to stop it taking off, because the president is inside it. I don't care now. I've got infinite credits. Just keep bombing until the propellers are destroyed. Amstrad version, yes, you got the propellers, you got the plane. You're kind of half expecting on some of these 8-bit versions the things to be missing. And, well, they are on... You know, the big tanks and things are missing, but the C64 is the one that... There you go, 1981, the former president was rescued by the Mercs. C64 version. It's probably not a good idea to shoot engines in an aircraft with the president inside, is it? Because that's where all the fuel is. Spectrum version, which is as messy as you'd expect from some automatically converted graphics quickly hacked into the game. And have we done it? I think we have. Master System. And this is a bit more like it. We off we go to shoot the wings and the aircraft engines, which is a really good idea and really safe, but that's what we've got to do. And there we go, we're off to rescue the president. There he is. The former president is rescued. The end. That's quite a nice end screen. Mercs is a sequel to Commando, and in the arcade it certainly does the job. The Megadrive version is quite superb. You can see why it's the top-selling Megadrive game of 1991. Lack of two-player game aside, it's jolly good fun. I had a big smile on my face when I was driving those massive tanks and just frying lots and lots of people. You should have that on the Amiga and ST. Sadly, what you get is a substandard port. At least the Amiga has smooth scrolling, but both these games just feel lame and cheap and like they needed far more effort put into them. But that's always the story with Tiertex, and that's the same with the Amstrad Spectrum and Commodore versions. As I kept saying, the budget release of this wasn't worth 28%. It's better than that on the 64, but it's a game that's lacking, and you see other games like Atari Warriors have smoother scrolling, and you know, they all need more time and effort. The Amstrad and Spectrum versions are very lackluster. The Specky version looks like something from years before. It plays okay, but it's really something in the 60% kind of score area. Amstrad version again, very similar. It's all a bit too coarse and crude, and really, yeah, you just want to go back and play Commando, which, despite being a far older game, plays far better than this. Master System version is a highlight. It is nothing particularly groundbreaking in it, but if you want a Commando style game on your Master System and you've got a mate to play with as well, then this does the job. It may feel old hat by 1991 standards. There's a lot of other games on the Master System that aren't as good as this. Across all these versions, it's the usual Tiertex story. Put the game together as quickly and cheaply as possible, shove it out, and hope the punters buy it. If you're going to play Mercs, play those Sega console versions, especially the Megadrive.